So, have you ever actually stopped to think about what happens when you shut your eyes? I mean, the immediate, almost automatic answer for most of us is just nothing, just pure blackness, right? We just kind of assume that closing our eyes shuts out the entire world and plunges us into this dark, empty void. But what if that deeply ingrained assumption is actually completely backward? What if instead of turning off our vision, closing our eyes is literally the key to turning on a completely different kind of sight? Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really intriguing, highly abstract text from December 2006. It was written by an author known as Deiform Buddha, and it's called Seeing the World with Closed Eyes, Advanced Cultivation 3. It fundamentally challenges how we perceive reality, basically proposing that human vision extends way, way beyond our physical retinas. As we unpack this text today, honestly, I find the structured way the author breaks down these mystical concepts absolutely fascinating. We're going to map out exactly how this source claims we can unlock a hidden universe just by changing how we think about sight. Okay, Section 1. Beyond conventional thinking, breaking the bounds of the material. The author sets up a really clear binary right out of the gate here. The text argues that conventional thinking has bound us for far too long. We're totally chained to this idea that sight requires physical light hitting a physical eye. The source actually calls these our material eyes and points out a pretty massive limitation. They can only ever show us the material world. But when we use our closed eyes, the text asserts that we bypass the physical entirely. So this isn't just about seeing blackness. It's about opening a literal window to a non-material world that is constantly operating right beside ours. Think about gravity for a second. In the waking, material world, humans just cannot fly, no matter how hard we flap our arms, right? But the text reminds us to think about our dreams. In a dream, with your physical eyes tightly shut, unconventional thinking takes over, and suddenly, flying is incredibly easy. The author describes this absolute delight of floating above people who are stuck on the ground, just effortlessly gliding over treetops, mountain peaks, and even way up above the clouds. This dream state is presented not just as some random hallucination, but as actual proof that when we shed earthly rules, these new realities become completely natural to us. Moving on to Section 2, Glimpses of the Non-Material, the space between sleep and wakefulness. Now, a really crucial point here is that this non-material sight isn't some totally alien concept reserved just for the elite. It's actually grounded in universal human experiences. The text states that seeing the world with closed eyes often happens when our consciousness is just slightly blurred. And the author points to two distinct phenomena as evidence for this. First, those vivid dreams we literally just talked about, where the physical eyes are closed, yet we perceive an entire world in hyper detail. And second, near-death experiences. The text notes that as life departs from the physical body and the physical eyes shut down, individuals frequently report seeing everything around them with absolute, crystal-clear precision. To demystify all this a bit further, the author shares a very personal anecdote. They describe the very first time they consciously saw this non-material world. And spoiler alert, it didn't happen on some secluded mountaintop. It happened while they were simply lying in bed after practicing their spiritual meditation, which they refer to as cultivation. Their eyes were completely closed, and their head was completely covered by a bedsheet. Yet, through the darkness of those closed eyes and the physical barrier of the sheet, a scene emerged. The text describes this scene as being so incredibly vivid that it was literally breathtaking. It's such a powerful image, right? Finding this boundless beauty within total physical limitation. All right, let's look at Section 3, the four-dimensional view, unveiling hidden depths. The author explains that when you achieve this state, you aren't just seeing a flat 2D image. You are perceiving four-dimensional scenes hidden right behind our normal three-dimensional world. The text actually likens this experience to looking through a massive space telescope. But not just any telescope. We're talking about one that is entirely free from the blurriness and distortion caused by cosmic dust. When you see with closed eyes, everything around you suddenly snaps into absolute, flawless clarity. It becomes way more vivid and quote-unquote three-dimensional than physical reality itself. And honestly, this is where we hit one of the absolute most provocative claims in this entire 2006 text. The author strongly urges the reader not to set up a chasm between these two ways of seeing. Because let's face it, we all have this habit of thinking that only the material world, the things we can physically touch and measure, is real life.
Well, the text completely flips that assumption on its head. It states incredibly boldly that life in the unseen, non-material world is actually more real and more reliable than the physical reality we navigate every single day. Which brings us to Section 4, our holographic universe, a reality without boundaries. This idea actually builds on a truly fascinating geometric concept. The author explicitly links their philosophy, which they call Lifechanyuan, to the Mobius strip. Now, if you've ever taken a strip of paper, given it a half twist, and taped the ends together, you know exactly what this is. You create a shape with only one continuous side and one continuous edge. You could take a pen, trace a line all the way along it, and cover both the quote-unquote front and back without ever lifting your pen off the paper. The text uses the Mobius strip as this amazing conceptual tool to explain that our universe is holographic. Basically, there is no distinct boundary between the material and the non-material. Just as there is no true front or back to that strip of paper, it is all one continuous, totally unbroken reality. From there, the author seamlessly connects this geometric principle directly to ancient spiritual wisdom, specifically quoting the Buddha. By highlighting phrases like not dharma, not non-dharma, or this is called the world, non the world, not non-world, the source argues that these ancient teachings were actually early forms of this holographic understanding. It's like they were trying to tell us thousands of years ago what the Mobius strip illustrates visually for us today. Trying to divide reality into strict binary categories like material versus non-material or open eyes versus closed eyes is fundamentally missing the true boundaryless nature of the entire universe. Almost done here, Section 5, 4 Steps to True Sight, Cultivating the Experience. Now, I love that the author is remarkably upfront here. They state super directly, I cannot tell you how to see the world with closed eyes. It's something you literally have to explore, accumulate perception for, and ultimately figure out the quote-unquote trick to completely on your own. But they do provide 4 essential guideposts to help you get there. Let's walk through them real quick. First step is tranquility. You have to find a deep inner stillness. Second, you have to actively prevent your thoughts from becoming chaotic. You need a really focused, calm mind. Third, involves maintaining a sense of childlike wonder. That means staying open to wild possibilities without all that adult cynicism getting in the way. And finally, an awareness of transformation. So just being super conscious of the subtle shifts in your own perception. The text basically suggests that mastering these 4 states creates the perfect conditions for the non-material world to finally reveal itself to you. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with the ultimate promise presented in deiform Buddhist text. The author concludes the piece with a really beautiful wish that everyone might one day achieve this incredible ability. Because according to the source, once you manage to actually see the world with closed eyes, your entire perspective on life, your most deeply held values, and your fundamental worldview will undergo a profound, massive transformation. The text declares that only then will your true life actually begin. So based on all the mind-bending concepts we've explored today, ask yourself, if you could suddenly perceive a flawless, boundaryless reality just by closing your eyes, how would your worldview change when your true life begins?